I don't care how fancy a new game's graphics are or how many guns its guns have. What I want to know is, do I need to take out a little notebook and jot down some names, draw a rudimentary map, connect some dots? What I really want to know is, should I be taking notes? I know I'm not alone in this. I've found plenty of people asking across internet forums for note-taking games, or notebook games, or journaling games. There are a lot of boring names for this. But the games, they're not boring. These are games that breach their digital confines, filling up the pages of our notebooks with strange hieroglyphics and the cat scratches of a mind enthralled by a mystery. These physical relics may come from playthroughs of modern games, but they harken back to an earlier era of gaming, when the game's manual was a critical part of the product. In the 80s and 90s, when memory on game cartridges and floppy disks was limited, it didn't make sense for developers to take up precious space with instructions and diagrams. So, a game's manual typically included control layouts, lore, and hints not found in the game itself. Check out this menu for Root Beer Tapper, or the kick-ass winged snake art for Vanguard, which looked like this. One of the most famous and gorgeous examples is the Legend of Zelda manual. It's full of colorful art, enemy and item descriptions, and helpful early game maps. 7 pages alone are dedicated to setting up the story. Other manuals went even further. Some contain the solutions to puzzles that acted like a sort of proto-DRM. Star Tropics included a letter written by your in-game uncle that you dipped in water to reveal a hidden code. Thanks, Uncle. But a common feature of a lot of these manuals, usually in the back, was some blank pages for the player to take notes.
I guess it's for you, the player, to write things down if you wanted.
This was an era before guides were ubiquitous. Figuring out puzzles or mapping out a game world was up to you. And using a pen and paper made decrypting a game's mysteries much easier. These days, it's not hard to find blogs, forum posts, and Pinterest boards filled with images of hand-drawn maps or puzzle solutions for games like Myst or Zelda. These became precious keepsakes for people, a testament to their journey through the game and a relic of their adventure. It's hard to know if this was the intention of the developers at the time. Game graphics were rudimentary, so puzzles and environmental clues were much more obtuse, which made note-taking much more of a necessity. As technology progressed, game manuals became less and less of a memory saver, shrinking down in size and detail. Today, digital sales have made them all but obsolete, and the note-taking games that made them such a treasure faded along with them into a distant, sentimental memory. It was nostalgia for this era of gaming that partly inspired Phil Fish's 2012 puzzle platformer Fez. The throwback graphics and gameplay evoked that feeling of exploring a world teeming with unexplained secrets and cryptic puzzles, aided by one of the best video game soundtracks ever. The player's ability to switch dimensions was the perfect mechanic for hiding and uncovering clues. Quite literally, you could never see the full picture of a level all at once. They were packed with hidden areas, wild power-ups, and even an in-world alphabet. Like so many other games of a bygone era, this type of puzzle sleuthing was made much easier and more compelling if you kept a notebook of your work, a method directly inspired by Phil Fish's experience playing the Myst follow-up Riven. And these are some satisfying puzzles to solve, the kind where you feel lost in the dark, grasping at straws, right up until the moment your brain is slammed so hard by an epiphany that you practically fall out of a chair. When I played Fez, I used my notebook to keep track of glyphs and hidden messages I uncovered, along with my ongoing attempt to translate the game's language. Keeping a notebook became so associated with the game that a fantastic Tumblr blog was created just to show them off. It illustrates what made Fez so special. It wasn't just riffing on a visual or even auditory nostalgia, but a tactile one. A throwback not just to the games we used to play, but how we played them. It's how Fez was designed, and it required drawing on another aspect of these kind of retro games: complexity. As Patrick Stafford wrote in Unwinnable magazine, complexity is handling many different factors all at once, a juggling act of thought and skill. 2005's God of War was difficult, but it's not complex. You move through the world and defeat baddies. That's kind of all there is to it. But in Fez, you had to constantly be on the lookout for clues, while also juggling multiple interconnected series of puzzles, on top of trying to solve the level's platforming challenge. And before you could even begin to understand most of the game's secrets, you had to decrypt an entire alphabet. And you had to be really dedicated to solving these things because the clues could be spread across multiple levels, and the game didn't signpost them at all. Which was another big change that occurred alongside the decline of game manuals in the early aughts. As the PlayStation and Xbox dominated the market, developers and publishers wanted to reach wider audiences. So they relied on things like huge on-screen button prompts, super detailed quest logs, and literal breadcrumb trails to lower the complexity and thus the barrier of entry. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Not every game needs to be complex. And it's not like note-taking games completely disappeared. Rather, note-taking was mostly relegated to murder mystery games, like those based on Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew, and the works of Agatha Christie. They've made literally a billion of these. And no shit, Sherlock. This is a literary and cinematic genre that's loved by millions of people, so its games haven't always followed the larger gaming trends. But unlike mystery books and movies, where the plot must ultimately reveal the solution, mystery games give you the chance to be the detective, with a notebook full of all your little clues. That's exactly how I felt as I puzzled through Her Story. This full motion video game, released in 2015, gives you the chance to play the detective as you watch clips from a police database and try to unravel a murder mystery. The real actors bit isn't the only throwback here. The game is also a lot easier and more immersive with a notepad at your side. It's not at all the same reason you're taking notes in a game like Fez. Unraveling Her Story's mystery is the entire experience. But like Fez, Her Story journal-pilled a lot of people, us included. And I think it's partly because of the way the game's note-taking perfectly complements the amateur sleuth the player is essentially role-playing. And that's why I think so many of today's best note-taking games are murder mysteries, or murder mystery adjacent. But a lot of people view note-taking as essentially homework, so game developers have figured out ways to preserve the essence of note-taking while making it optional. Outer Wilds is a space mystery about a dead alien civilization, an intergalactic whodunit, if you will. As you dig deeper into the enigma of their disappearance, you encounter physics-defying puzzles, hidden shortcuts, and uncover long-lost journals spread across multiple planets. It's a level of complexity that would beg for detailed note-taking, if it weren't for the clever way the game helps players keep track of clues. Not in a list, but in a web of connections. With just a glance, you can see what threads still need pulling, while easily reviewing what you've gleaned so far. You can also take a break from one branch of the mystery and hit up an entirely different line of questioning. It stays true to the messiness of a notebook while keeping everything well organized, like a conspiracy tack board made by Marie Kondo. The return of the Oberdin setting is quite different from Outer Wilds. Instead of playing as an interplanetary archaeologist, you're a maritime insurance agent conducting an audit. But I promise almost everyone was murdered. You unravel the fate of each unfortunate soul on board the vessel by piecing together if, but more likely how, they died. You aren't told if you're right until you get a trifecta of correctly identified victims, which means sometimes making a wild-ass guess is the correct path forward. Since you're solving this question for every person on the Oberdin, it ends up being an overwhelming amount of information at first. But it can all be easily tracked using the game's built-in journal. Filling in its blank pages is a core feature of the game, along with a magical pocket watch which lets you see how a person died. That part's also cool. You can see another take on the idea of a fill-in-the-blank style mystery in the case of the Golden Idol. As players collect clues from its strangely charming murder scenes, they accumulate words in a bank at the bottom of the screen, which are then used to fill in a short summary of what happened. These words and names are also used to complete some smaller puzzles that ultimately make solving this central whodunit easier. This built-in clue tracking freed me of the need to write down every little thing, so instead I could fill my notepad with charts and tables and even literal math equations that I needed to solve in order to close the case. Okay, so it's kind of like homework. These are games that put logic and deduction front and center, but they're not the only way developers have paid tribute to the mysterious vibe of gaming's earliest years. In fact, Tunic does something even more unique. This isometric adventure game walks a similar path to Fez, riffing on the nostalgic experience of exploring a world with little context or direction. It also has a killer soundtrack. But what makes Tunic special is that it takes the idea of a game manual and makes it part of the experience, tossing the player a new page as a reward for their progress. The pages are mostly written in a fictional language and require some intuition and lateral thinking to parse. And much like Fez, even deeper puzzles are hidden inside both the game and the manual. Bringing it all full circle, the in-game manual also has notes scribbled in the back, left behind by another player. I took some crucial notes while I played Tunic, but nowhere near as many as my coworker Nicole Carpenter did. She kept a journal of the game and filled it with drawings and diagrams, which you could see in her review on Polygon.com.
And I also collaborated with my partner on it. So he did some of the drawings and I did some of the drawings, and that was really fun.
Nicole, like me, is an avid game note taker.
So I'm always looking for a reason to use a notebook, because I'm one of those people who are like, I'll buy a new notebook and it will save my life. You can also see how many notebooks I have back there.
Oh yeah.
I shared my Fez notes with Nicole, and she showed me some of the journals she's created over the years.
This is the Hitman. This is one page from the Hitman one.
I wanted to talk to her about a game that takes note-taking even further than all these other games, because it makes keeping a game journal the entire game. In fact, it's part of its own little genre called
Keepsake games.
Ooh, I like
which
that.
are games where like the game itself is creating like a journal. So for the game Field Guide for Memory,
a game where you play as a cryptozoologist doing actual fieldwork.
it has prompts that you get sent every day. Like it wants you to write a letter to like another scientist. So like you write the letter over here. And then sometimes it's like go out into nature and collect some leaves or something. And then like journal about the leaves, or like draw the leaves and then write down what the species name is and do some more research at your computer, and like that's all part of the game.
This niche genre is called keepsake gaming because at the end of the experience, what you have left is a physical keepsake of your journey, which is also the case with so many of the note-taking games I love. I can always play Fez again, but this little notebook brings back the memories of that first bewildering playthrough. From the moment I started teasing out the game's deeper mysteries, the revelation I experienced finally translating that damned alphabet. Which is funny, because one thing in common with all these games is that I wish I could forget I ever played them, if only so I could experience playing them again. You should give it a try. I promise, keeping a gaming notebook doesn't sound as much like homework as it might appear. And I also expect your assignment on my desk Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Don't act surprised, it's in the syllabus. Thanks for watching my video. If you'd like to get started journaling your own games, well, now you can do it with this exquisite Polygon branded notebook. It's full of paper. That's right, paper.